Dave McMenamin, ESPN NBA insider. How are you, Dave?
I'm doing great, Rich. And Chris, good to be on with you guys.
Yeah, good to have you back here. You guys go way back, right? Chris and you and Dave?
Q's 2002.
That's right. Back in the
Long
day.
time ago.
Syracuse's Dave McMenamin here on the Rich Eisen Show. So then, let's discuss what you made of Zion's debut and what you might have already heard from folks that you contact and speak to around the league.
I mean, just really happy the way it turned out. Now, it wasn't ideal for him to be limited to that strict minutes barrier and come out in the middle of this incredible little run that he had when he had brought the Pelicans all the way back and they took the lead over the Spurs. But to feel it from afar, to watch it on TV in New York, and to see the energy in the building, to see the smile on his face, everything you hear about Zion is that he just really loves the game of basketball, and it was hurting him to be sitting out all that time, returning from that knee injury. And then he just really showed out. I mean, LeBron's debut, which is the only thing we really have to compare this thing to, was 25 points in 42 minutes. And he puts up 22 in 18 minutes. I just can't wait to watch him grow even more and get more games under his belt this season.
What do you think Gentry and the Pelicans' plan is for the short and the rest of the league? The rest of the league season future. What do you think the plan is here, Dave?
Well, David Griffin told Adrian Wojnarowski on the Woj pod today that he could tell that the coaching staff didn't really love that plan, but he doesn't care. His job is to make sure that the long-term health of Zion is intact. So basically, according to Griff, the indicator was as soon as the training staff sensed that Zion was starting to dip into playing with fatigue, they decided to pull him. And, that's kind of tough to hear because we're so used to watching sports, and it's kind of what is that little extra that you have left in the tank when everybody's fatigued that separates the winners from the losers. But at the same time, I don't think his body is where they want it to be in terms of, this whole idea of they're retraining him in several aspects of the physicality. And so until he gets to that level that they have in hope for him, I think they're going to be super cautious.
Dave McMenamin here on the Rich Eisen Show. I love that. So Griff tells Woj, to use the phrase at the shorthand here, that this is the plan. I don't care if Alvin Gentry and the coaching staff has a problem with it, and they do. They would like to press the pedal to the Williamson metal a little bit more, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and I understand the thinking of Alvin Gentry. I mean, why do you want to take a kid out who scored 17 straight points in the fourth quarter when you have a chance to win, and when you're a team that is actually, as of late, been putting yourself in position to maybe make a playoff push, so these games really matter. I think the Griffin point of view is that as much as this game might feel like it matters, what really matters is whatever we can do to have the most out of Zion over the 7 years that we have him guaranteed.
So outside of this, the story of the NBA season would you say is what so far? How the Lakers have maybe overperformed? And I understand that's a difficult word to use when LeBron and Anthony Davis are teammates. The Giannis future. Give me the I guess Thursday before Super Bowl week story for the NBA season here, Dave.
Well, the Luka breakout has been incredible to watch. He's a truly special player. He's doing this in just his second year in the league, and there's very few holes to his game, and he's made Dallas, you could talk yourself into thinking that they'll be a contender this year if they make some moves around the fringes at the trade deadline. Because a lot of their success this year has been without having Kristaps Porzingis consistently in the lineup because of injuries. Luka's that good. Giannis, of course, it looks like he'll be the back-to-back MVP here. And so, he's had some games along this stretch where he's shown an outside shot, which was really the only thing that stopped him from beating Toronto Raptors in the playoffs last year. They sagged on him and filled up the lane and dared him to shoot, and he couldn't make shots. And so, that ascension, I think some of the turmoil and potential turmoil in Philly is very interesting. And then, other than the Lakers playing so well, the Clippers just seem to be a team when they turn it on, they look like the best team in the league, but a lot of times they don't turn it on because it's the regular season.
What about that Philly turmoil? Let's pull on that string a little bit here, and how you see that all playing out over the next several weeks.
Well, in covering the Lakers, I think it was either LeBron or Anthony Davis in the last couple of weeks spoke about how well they're playing, and he said all the pieces fit. And it's just the exact opposite in Philadelphia. The pieces don't fit. Ben Simmons is showing out right now while Joel Embiid is not in the lineup. And when Joel Embiid's in there and occupies the space that he does, and rightfully so, he's the best big man in the game, Ben Simmons' game is limited, because there's not the space on the floor for him to get into the lane. That's where Embiid has to be most of the time, or unless you make Embiid a standstill three-point shooter, which isn't doing his talents the full service they deserve. And so there's a push and pull there. And you already had coach in Brett Brown who, last season, many believed that in the playoffs he was coaching for his job. And I'm not so sure his early season coaching performance has inspired much confidence that he will be the guy to ultimately figure it out with this personnel, or if they find another coach, or they have to, think about moving a guy like Ben Simmons to find a fit that works better next to Joel Embiid, because Joel Embiid, when healthy, is like a top 5 dominant player in the game.
So, Elton Brand's a smart guy, went to Duke. He knows what he's doing. He must see this. He must know this. What do you think the answer is? What do you think the move is here?
So, I think preaching patience is a good thing. Those guys are still quite young. I personally, if I was running the team, I don't think you have to, make a drastic move, say, at this trade deadline. I think you try to hope that, they are still incorporating a major new piece like an Al Horford. You recognize that you want to try to get some shooting at the trade deadline, because like a couple of years ago when they added Ersan Ilyasova and Marco Bellinelli, that shooting is what allowed that team to really, finally make its mark that they was trying to make. I would do that first. If it flames out in the playoffs, then you had to ask yourself some serious questions. But outside of Milwaukee, I don't know if there's any other team in the East that I would say has a better chance to make the finals than the Sixers, despite kind of the clunky formation that we're talking about.
ESPN NBA insider Dave McMenamin here on the Rich Eisen Show from New York City. You were in Radio City Music Hall the other day when the entire lower bowl was filled up with folks who were paying their final respects to David Stern. I give you the floor. You wrote a great piece on it. What was it like in that building, Dave?
It was, as I termed it, the full measure of the man. There were some great moments of humor. There were also some, tear-jerking moments. Magic Johnson getting up on the dais without any notes, speaking from the heart, and saying that David Stern saved his life. He said it was my lowest moment after he had to retire prematurely in a world that didn't really understand what HIV and AIDS were. And David Stern not only, tried to make sure he could use any connection he could to get the best medical attention for Magic Johnson, but invited him to play in the 92 All-Star game as if to say, listen, we don't view you as a cast-off. You're still part of our family, and we want you to know that you should feel loved and embraced here. And Magic Johnson, it felt like by him playing in that game, and obviously he won MVP and it was a magical sports moment, he thinks he helped save other people's lives because, the society at large became more comfortable with the idea of trying to understand what HIV and AIDS were rather than just, put a pox upon those people. And then, you have Val Ackerman, the former WNBA commissioner, getting up and saying that she feels like David Stern deserves as much credit in the women's sports movement in this country as Billie Jean King does. You had, David Stern's son, Eric, it was just a cut up, and talking about how his dad likes to tell dirty jokes, and he told a couple dirty jokes to the audience.
Is
at large,
that right?
Everyone was cracking up.
Is that right?
And it was like, yeah, because that's what David Stern is. David Stern, he was a guy who was brilliant, but he was a guy who, he was always bantering with the press, and if you could make him laugh or smirk, you felt good about yourself, because that's what's that kind of challenge, of that intellectual challenge, to kind of have humor infused to the day-to-day proceedings, was what he was all about. So it was at Radio City Music Hall. Who would have thought James Dolan ended up looking like a great guy that day, because he paid for the entire thing.
Right.
And you had, Rich, I couldn't do anything but scan the crowd as, speaker after speaker came up, and you spot Oscar Robertson, Isaiah Thomas, and Bill Walton, and Bill Bradley, and Michael Jordan, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Yao Ming, Steve Nash, Dirk Nowitzki. The greats showed up to pay their respects, which I think says a lot about, who the guy was and what he did for the game, because, and I don't want to get too morbid here, but there are other commissioners out there that I'm sure some of the game's greats would not be showing up for.
Yeah, again, your piece is must read. Adam Silver talking about a member of the media saying when he got cursed out by Stern was still one of the greatest phone calls that he ever got. The stories that you recount, that you were able to pass along, it really was great stuff, Dave. I really, that's why part of the reason why I wanted you on. I appreciate the call.
Oh, of course. Thanks, Rich.
No, you got it. Look, look for our call a lot more, man. We're getting into the thick of it, so we'll chat soon.
Excellent. Let's do it.
There you go. There's Dave McMenamin getting out he got out of his cab, I believe.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live, or download the Rich Eisen Show app.